Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome back to my series. This will be the second video in the series about where not to start with various authors who I've read a lot of their books. Today I wanted to do Toni Morrison and talk about kind of where not to start with Toni Morrison. Now, this is kind of a fraught topic for me because I think Toni Morrison is simply the greatest American writer of the at least the second half of the 20th century and quite possibly the 20th century into the 21st century as well. I don't know of any other American writer who I would put on that list, and I frequently on my channel and elsewhere said that Beloved by Toni Morrison is the best American novel. And I don't know if that qualifies as the greatest American novel. It's not exactly what people think of when they think of greatest American novel, but I definitely think it is. So talking about where not to start with the works of a writer that you admire so much, that you think of as being one of the great authors, is a little bit of a slippery slope. And then in addition to that, there are three Toni Morrison novels that I have not read. I have not read A Mercy, Home, or God Bless the Child. Those are her last three novels. So I read the first 8 of her novels and not the last 3. So, you know, I can't speak intelligently about those last 3. I know that critically speaking, they're not usually ranked among her better works, but I do intend to read them. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to get to A Mercy either the beginning of next week or sometime in July, if not the beginning of next week. But I did want to do this because I do think, and kind of the point of this series is, I do think it's important, or important to me anyway, for authors that I really love, for people to get off to a good start, so that you can appreciate and enjoy the works of these authors without, you know, maybe having to go through some of their books that are not perhaps the best place to start. So I wanted to do that with Toni Morrison, and I have 3 of the 8 novels of Toni Morrison I've read. There are 3 that I think would be a mistake as a place to start. So let me start with the first one, and that is Tar Baby by Toni Morrison. I believe this is her 3rd novel, and this is a fine novel, and I liked it. I thought it was good. My reason for putting Tar Baby on the list of a place not to start with Toni Morrison is that, to me, this novel feels very different from Toni Morrison's other novels. Like all of her novels, it deals with race and race relations between African American people and white Americans. It does, but it's set on an island in the Caribbean, and it's this kind of almost like a closed space kind of novel, and it just felt different. I'm tempted to say it felt a little more contemporary than most of Toni Morrison's novels, and now that I've said it out loud, I actually like the way that sounds. I'm not telling you never to read Tar Baby. I'm just saying this would not be the Toni Morrison I picked up to start with. Second, and this one kind of pains me because I really love Toni Morrison's novel Jazz, but this is also not the place I would start. Jazz is one of her more mature works. You know, this is a novel written after Toni Morrison had become Toni Morrison, the great author, the recognized author, and that's not a detriment to the novel, except that her confidence means that she is challenging her readers more and more with, you know, this, not necessarily the content of what she's writing about, but how she structures the story and how, you know, and what you're supposed to kind of bring to the reading experience to get the most out of it. And while I really like Jazz, I'm not sure this would be the novel that I would encourage people to start with, even though I really like it. The novel on this list that I'm most confident about as the place not to start in reading the works of Toni Morrison is with Paradise. Paradise is an incredibly dense, complex, illusion-filled novel, dealing with the topic essentially really of colorism and racism and violence and its implications and the past impact on the present and the future. And It is an incredibly intense read, a book you have to read really, really closely, and I've read it, and I will say that I'm still not sure matter of fact, I'm positive I didn't get everything out of the novel that it's possible to get out of the novel. And I think if you start with Paradise, you're going to think that all of Toni Morrison is, I hesitate to use the term, as inaccessible as Paradise is, and it's not. This is definitely a book I think that if you are a Toni Morrison fan, a Toni Morrison reader, you should get to and read. It is a book that I personally think I need to reread to understand better. But this, I think, would be a poor choice of a place to start. Of all the 3 books I've chosen as a place not to start with Toni Morrison, I'm most confident about Paradise, of the 8 that I've read. One of the most remarkable things I think about Toni Morrison is how difficult it is to come up with reasons for you not to read any one of her individual books. And that's because her books are just so good. You know, Morrison is pretty unique in the fact that she worked as a professor, she worked as an editor. Before she published her first novel, she worked with a lot of really important writers and novelists. And so by the time her first novel came out, when she was 39, she was a lot more mature and I think confident in herself as a person and what she thought. And if you've ever heard Toni Morrison speak, you know, and it's just a great interview she did with Charlie Rose and with an English journalist, in which she's just incredibly fierce in how she approached her work and how she thinks people should approach her work. And so she is unusual in that respect. So because of that, I think you could probably read Morrison's novels in order as a place to start. So just, you know, because of that, I would say The Bluest Eye is just a great place to start. This is Morrison's first novel, and it is a powerful, painful, beautiful, incredibly well executed novel. It has got to be the most remarkable first novel, I think, in the history of American literature. I'm sure there are people who come up with one that could rival it, but this thing is just great. And it is definitely a great place to start. I also think Sula, if you get your hands on Sula, is another great place to start. One reason why I think that that Sula might be a little bit more representative of Morrison's work than The Bluest Eye is because Sula contains an element of the supernatural, which is common in Morrison's, I think in Morrison's greatest and best work. There's always just a little bit of something supernatural that's hinted at or that plays a role, not in a cheap solve problems kind of way, but in a complex and rich way, and that starts with Sula, and of course, beloved, greatest American novel ever, and then what had been for a long time my favorite Toni Morrison novel, Song of Solomon. All 4 of those novels are just great, and you could start with any one of them. What I would say is, if you are intending on reading Morrison, you know, and really getting deeply into her work, just start at the beginning. Bluest Eye, Sula, and then you could actually read, I think, Tar Baby, and it would fit within, in the context, Beloved. If you're just looking to read one Toni Morrison novel, please don't miss Beloved, and then the incredibly great Song of Solomon. Anyway, there you go. There is my video on where not to start with the works of Toni Morrison, just as a review. And as a reminder, I'm not saying any of these works is bad, but Tar Baby is very different from most of her books. Jazz, I think, would be challenging as a first read of Morrison's work, and something you should come to after having gotten used to the world in which the worlds Toni Morrison creates, and then Paradise kind of as her most dense and complex and in some ways richest novels, probably not the place to start. Anyway, there you go. There's my video on where not to start with the works of Toni Morrison. Look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.